The government has its sights on your retirement savings, it seems. It's planning to charge GST on KiwiSaver fees, bringing in an extra $225 million a year to the Treasury benches. But it'll come at a cost to your retirement. Deloitte partner Alan Bulow is with us this morning to break it down. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you here. Can you tell us what is changing, what the proposed change is?
Sure. Historically, KiwiSaver fees have always not been subject to GST, right back to 1986 for any form of retirement savings. Other forms of investments have been subject to a little bit of GST. In effect, 10% of the services you got for fund managers were taxable, 90% were exempt. There's been a little bit of running around and a bit of technical confusion and all sorts of things that get GST geeks like me happy in the non-KiwiSaver side, but KiwiSaver's always been really clear. What has come out with the government announcement is they want to try and tidy up some of those other bits on the non-KiwiSaver side. We don't think the way they're doing it is the right way to do it, but we see KiwiSaver as being collateral damage in their technical attempt to try and fix the thing outside of KiwiSaver. They're then saying, well, we can't make that taxable and leave KiwiSaver fees non-taxed, so we're going to tax everything.
Right. So this is about consistency. They're trying to make sure it's consistent across different forms of savings or investments. What impact will this have on your average KiwiSaver who is saving for their retirement?
And this is the really interesting thing, to try and solve and get that consistency on what we see as a pretty fine technical point. And we think if they just legislated what was the current treatment, there would be no need and there'd be no additional tax that would be caught. But because of that compounding effect, in the documents that they've put out, they give some examples. And for one example, it's a decrease in your KiwiSaver balance of $20,000 by the end of it. And the really staggering number is the one that the Financial Markets Authority have put out. Looking out to 2070, the total KiwiSaver balances they're expecting would be over $100 billion less.
So Kiwis will have $100 billion less in savings.
Correct.
By 2070.
Correct.
Because of you're fixing some technical glitch.
Correct. It's a sledgehammer to try and fix this little technical thing, and we don't think that's the right way to fix the technical point, but it's a sledgehammer and KiwiSaver is just collateral damage.
Okay. The Minister has said that this won't come in until 2026, and so hopefully we'll be out of a cost of living crisis by then, though who knows. He's also said that the charges will be phased in and that the fund managers won't necessarily pass on the GST cost. Are you buying that?
I think for there we'll be guided by what the Financial Markets Authority have said when they've looked at it in the Inland Revenue documents. And they've said they think most fund managers will pass on the costs because the Financial Markets Authority is already putting pressure on the fund managers to drop their fees anyway.
Right, so it's going to happen, basically. So for your average, the $20,000 example you gave, is that just for your average KiwiSaver over the space of 25 years? They will have $20,000 less in there. That's a hell of a lot to a lot of people. That's like, if you look at the average, what you would spend on groceries, for example, in your retirement, that's about 4 years worth of groceries.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and as we say, this is a technical decision. The Inland Revenue set out 4 options. One of the options was, look, there's a little bit of inconsistent treatment. It's a bit messy. And one of the options which we support is just, well, let's just accept it's a bit messy. Let's legislate to allow for the messiness and just move on. And that has no cost, and that would be fine.
Why do we not pay GST on some financial services fees?
Most financial services don't have GST on it, and that's a universal thing in all GST or VAT regimes around the world. For instance, you just don't pay GST on interest.
Yes.
And it's just part of the complications and things. GST geeks have been looking at it literally for decades. There are reports for everywhere, and no one's come up with a good way to tax it. So instead we exempt financial services from GST pretty much universally.
Right, okay. The government has promised to the people no new taxes. Would you, as a tax expert, would you consider this to be a new tax?
Everybody that I've talked to that's got a KiwiSaver fund and is talking and looking at this in the last few days when we've been looking at this, has told me that they consider it to be a brand new tax. So it's in terms of technically, is there a new tax that someone's invented? No. Are we coming and looking at something that clearly hasn't been subject to tax since 1986 and saying we're going to change the legislation, it's a new change, and it's now going to be subject to tax? Sounds like a new tax.
Certainly does. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. That's Deloitte partner Alan Bulow.